This is Brent Richardson, and welcome to the Business Minutia Podcast, where our focus is on the details of business that are often passed over by traditional classes and leadership training. We focus on the stories of real people who have tried, failed, and learned through their experiences and are willing to share their lessons with others. I bet you don't know the name of the person that delivers your mail. That's my guess. I'm guessing you don't. And I don't think that's an irrational thing that you wouldn't know that. I would go even further and say, I doubt you give a Christmas gift to the person that delivers your mail. And you'd say, well, I have different people. Yeah, but there's probably one primary.
Right.
Probably one primary.
Right.
So we're going to talk about the keys to connecting with people and really connecting with people in under 5 minutes, right? Which is something that you've talked about on the podcast before that I do pretty well, but you do this really well as well. You're maybe the only person, I don't even know what her name is, but I know that you know the mail delivery person and she knows us quite well.
Well, and I just do it in a different way. I think that you are great at asking questions to get people to open up.
Yeah.
I am great at noticing people.
I just forget it. As soon as they open up, I go, I don't remember what they talked about.
I mean, I notice people. I notice things about people. So I know that our mail carrier has a Dr. Pepper, right? Every time I go out there to greet her, she has a Dr. Pepper and usually some M&Ms. So for Christmas, I get her Dr. Pepper M&Ms. And she does not like coffee. I've asked her. I said, "Do you like coffee?" She said, "I hate coffee." So you don't get her a Starbucks gift card.
Now she makes your Christmas list. I need to combine our brains. I need you to sit with me all day on all my conference calls. Nobody wants to do that, by the way.
But I also know that I am awful at remembering things. So I keep notes on everything. If you come to my house and I've cooked for you, I know what all your allergies are.
That's incredible.
And what you don't like.
That's incredible.
And I know what I fed you last time.
I forget it almost immediately.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. How many times have I come home and you'd be like, that's an incredible story. What was their name? Or what did they do? You'd ask a question. I'd look at you like, I don't know. I have no idea. Why is that important? And
but
you're
you
like,
know
that's
their
cool.
favorite kind of music.
Sometimes. Yeah, maybe it's just that's important to me, right?
Right.
So we were talking about this here recently, and Jamie was asking me, how do you have the ability to connect with people that quickly? Because you can connect with people pretty fast. I think a part of it is just I'm a jack of all trades, so I've had just about every hobby out there, and I use those types of things to connect with people. So, all right, let's do it this way. Jamie is going to interview me of how I connect with people, because to me, this is not even something that I could teach, because it's just natural. I just organically do it. So, but I think if we talk about it, there are clearly some points and things that I do that people would benefit from.
Right. So number one question I'd have to ask is, how much do you listen versus how much you actually talk?
I will open up with as much listening as I can. Initially, I want to listen, right? Because a lot of times we're talking about less than 5 minutes, right? If I'm talking, I'm not learning anything.
Right.
I know what I know about me. So talking about me is not helping a whole lot. So I want to give just enough information to try to get somebody to give a little. Now, if I need to give, there's this old relationship principle that was like, if you want transparency from people, you have to be transparent, right? So
right.
I might offer something there just to, as bait.
Start the trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we'll talk about this. It's different virtually versus in an office environment where you can't read people's interactions. So in an office environment, I'm going to focus on the masses and look at what kind of engagement I'm getting from an entire room. And again, I think maybe you should clarify, I'm not expecting to connect with people in a room of 30. If I'm in a room of 30, I'm going to connect with the two people next to me, right? That's where I'm going to focus on my connection. And I'm going to sit with if there's somebody I want to connect with, I'm going to sit there. And so that I can make that happen. But more likely the stuff I'm going to be talking about is you're in a room full of 8, or you're on a virtual call with, 8 or so people.
Right.
And in those cases, you might have less than 5 minutes at the beginning of a call.
Right.
At the beginning of the meeting, and this is your opportunity to connect with folks.
Now, when you're trying to connect, are you connecting based on what you're doing, or are you trying to find something outside
of the purpose of the meeting every time for me?
Okay.
I don't like to, otherwise it feels like you're coming straight in and we're going straight to business, and you're not getting a lot of connection there, right? I'm trying to, for an authentic connection to happen, I need to learn a little bit about you.
Right.
I want to know a little bit about, if I can come out with some little tidbit that says, this is what makes Jamie tick. This is how she's wired. I like that. I don't think this is strategic. I think it's just being a good person. It's just the right thing to do to me, right? So it's a natural thing for me to go do that. Now, you want to be careful if you're 10 minutes in still talking about somebody's dog, right? While there's a whole other, 10 other people that are like, you're wasting all those people's time. So you have a limited window. That's why I say, you're under 5 minutes. You might be under 2 minutes, right, to do this. So the more listening I can, the better. Not related to the topic at hand. So sometimes if there's already conversation that's taking place, I'm going to jump in on that. That's gold to me. And a lot of it's standard weather talk or something like that. I'm not learning a whole lot about what you think about the weather, although I'm guilty of talking about the weather as well. But offer something in there. Like you can throw a tidbit out there and see what people will react to.
So, Brent, what are some examples of good small talk options?
Well, pets, it's different in the office versus being at home. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail in a minute. But I think everything's virtual right now, so let me focus on that. Or virtual for us, at least. This won't be evergreen in the future. You'll hopefully be back in an office, but you never know. You may have a mix of both.
Right.
So I've got chickens in the background. And so I've got, dogs, things like most people have pets and things like that. So it's an easy thing to open with hey, I apologize if the dog, blah, blah, blah. Usually get somebody to share a little bit about their dog or their pet or some animal like that. Or you have roosters. How can you have roosters? You can share a little bit about yourself. I want to keep that as tight as I can. Because again, my job is not to talk about myself. I'm trying to learn a little bit about the other person. Right. So usually somebody will chime in with, a rooster story or something. They have some connection in that way.
Right.
And that's my goal, is to get them to talk a little bit about themselves.
And when they do, so how do you know, you always say that you just kind of pull a thread. Yeah. How do you know which threads to pull?
There's this saying, I think we've used this on the podcast before, and I don't remember what book it's from, but there was this statement that everybody's normal until you get to know them.
Right.
Meaning everybody is a weird thing, right?
Right.
And it's hard to get people's real weird thing, but you can usually get a unique thing about the person. And every once in a while, you'll get somebody that will expose that. They'll share a little bit of a thing.
Right.
Like, what's a good example? I had a person one time that not only collected toy trains, but they built them themselves. Right? That's not a normal thing that people do, right? So when you give me a thread like that, I'm immediately pulling. And really what it comes down to is people like to talk about themselves. They do. And if you can find something they're passionate about, you don't even have to have that in common with them. But this is an opportunity for you to go learn more about something. And honestly, there's a part of me that's like, what happened in your background to make you think that that's the thing you're really passionate about? That may be what's going on in my brain, but what comes out is, whoa, you do what now? Help me understand. Tell me more. And I want to go learn more about what that unique thing is. So once I get that thread, I'm going to pull it.
Okay. Have you ever pulled a thread and wish you hadn't pulled that far?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I tell this story? Is it appropriate? I'll tell it, and you can decide later, as the producer, whether it needs to get cut. But I had an employee that was going to go to Jamaica, and this was years ago. Okay, and I was like, "That's interesting." My wife and I went to Jamaica. Where did you go? And the thread. Once I realized we had this in common, I'm pulling. Yep. Only to find out the resort they were going to was not something you'd tell your mom about. There was some, different kind of activities that went on at that resort. And
it was a promiscuous.
Some swinging. Who knows? That's all I'll say. And once I realized it, I was like, oh, that's why you're trying not to talk about this.
Right.
You can pull too hard. You have to be careful about what threads you pull.
Yeah.
Right. And that just takes time and realizing if the person's not willing to share, stop. Right. Yeah. So you definitely want to stop. If they're, I'll push once. And then if they're not, I'm going to change the subject and veer off of it.
You also use a lot of self-deprecation. Why? How does that work for you?
Everybody can relate to failure. Everybody can. I just had to write an article, publish something for my company, and that was the thing I led with because I know everybody connect with that. Everybody fails. Everybody's insecure about their failure. So it's better to just come out with it and be open about that, right? I'm usually, my goal is to learn about the person, not make them think I'm a star, because that's far from the truth, right? And so if I can lead with something or have something there that's a little more self-deprecating, that will also have people open up. People will be relatable about that. And again,
right.
If you want transparency and authenticity from people, you have to also be transparent and authentic.
Now, do you also say the areas that you are a star in? I mean, you have to connect with them on the positives as well, right?
Yeah, maybe. But you're connecting in under 5 minutes.
Right.
If I'm going to do that, that's probably because I have a very particular agenda, and that starts to feel manipulative to me.
Right.
I'm not saying I don't do it. Right. There might be a case where I'm trying to get in with somebody and I want to make sure they understand that I can help with a problem.
Right.
And I want to help with a problem.
Right.
I'll probably take a different approach and just go one-on-one with that person if I wanted to do that. But on occasion, I might sneak something in there.
Okay. So have you ever failed to connect?
Oh, sure. I mean, I don't know how many times have I connect with somebody and I have no memory of their name or
Right.
or what we just talked about. I've had plenty of cases where I'm trying to establish some kind of connection and I'm getting stonewalled or crickets. In the virtual realm, it's more frequent, right? That you don't get any interaction. But again, you got to look for the clues and if I'm getting silence from a certain space, I'll shift gears and go to a space that I know I can connect.
Yeah, and there are some people that are just like extreme introverts and they just want to get their work done and they want to go home and they don't care to connect with you. Right?
Sure.
So how do you, do you
Some
just let
people
that
aren't
go?
that kind of person. They're just not that way. And yeah, I do. Now, you know what? Over time, I still connect with those people.
Yeah.
They're just not the kind of people that are going to be easy to connect with that quickly.
Okay, so say there are several people in the room or several people on your conference call. How do you know who to connect with?
I'm going to go with the most influential person if I
Okay.
can. That's where I'll probably try to start if I can. And the other thing is, how do you know that?
Right. Maxwell always called them the Claude, right?
Yeah, well, there's a story about that
Same
you'd have
type
to go
of-
through and listen
right.
to, right? Where he talks about like the head person on his board was a guy named Claude, and whatever Claude said, everybody else went along with,
Right.
right? So you want to start with that influential person. How you know that's tricky. You know, sometimes
Right.
you just know because everybody tells you, and you know.
Right.
Sometimes you can watch and read the room.
Yeah, look
and-
at who people are looking
Well,
at.
you watch people's eyes. Yeah. And everybody will look at Claude. If you're proposing something, they're all going to look at the influencer to see
Right.
what the influencer says.
A little bit harder when you're on a conference call and there's no you don't
Yeah,
you
exactly.
can't see who
you don't,
people
you
are
don't
looking
get
at.
that capability,
Right.
right? So that takes away that trick. So there I'm just going to pick somebody, right?
Okay.
And you take the connection you can get virtually, I guess
Okay.
is what I'm saying, and which is still better than nothing. That over time you can pull all those folks in, and if there's somebody there that's influential that you're really trying to connect with,
Right.
go do it one-on-one. Go have a one-on-one connection, and
Okay.
there you can connect in a much more organic, natural, and more aggressive way, actually, in the sense that you can straight ask questions like, well, did you have a good weekend? I did this weekend, and if you tell people a little bit about what's going on in your life, they're probably going to be forthcoming a little bit with something on their side.
Right.
Now, they're not going to come in with, the fact they're going through a divorce or something like that. They're not going to give you that information. You may not want any of that, right?
Right.
But we're talking about hobbies, what people like to do, their favorite things to eat, music they listen to, those types of things. Those are the common ground that are pretty natural and easy to establish pretty quickly.
Okay, so this is going to be a difficult one, but when you're on a conference call with a bunch of people, how do you get people off of mute?
Call them out. Yeah. And you got to be careful with who you call out. If it's people you really don't know,
Right.
then it's tough. But if you know them a little bit, you certainly can. Some cases I will, if I know a little bit about them. Now, if a lot of times what happens is I'm on a call and everybody's, on mute, I'll pick on one person I do know.
Okay.
Or, and we'll get to this in a second, or I'll find some way, some distinguishing part of whatever their virtual icon is or something that
Okay.
they've got some sort of emoji or they've got
Right.
what do you call the avatar?
Right.
And I'll find, if you have anything unique like that, you're just begging to, especially when somebody's got their dog, right?
Right.
Tell me about your dog is what you're really saying. They're saying, ask me about my dog, please. Right. That's what this
Right.
is saying. And then I'll go pull that thread. Right?
Now, do you approach it any differently if you are not actually in charge of the conference call? At that point, do you care about the engagement of everyone else?
Yeah, I think it is different. If I'm in charge of the call, I'm really watching the clock. And it better be 2 minutes or so, right?
Okay.
You don't want to sit there and make a lot of small talk with people when it's they're there for you and your meeting, and you don't want to waste people's time.
Right.
So you got to be careful with how much time you're spending on things like this. If it's your meeting scheduled and it's not my responsibility and I don't care, oh yeah, I'll derail your meeting. I will continue to connect with people and take advantage of the time that you give me until you tell me you want to get focused on the task at hand.
Okay, and when you talked about like if somebody has a dog as their avatar or something like that, what other things are you looking for to engage people?
Well, anything in their image that they've got there. When you're in person, it's a little bit different. Now you're looking for, I'll see somebody with a school ring.
Okay.
And I'll talk a little bit about where'd you go to school, and there's some common ground that you can usually establish there.
Right.
If there's anything unique about the clothes they're wearing, usually somebody might have a shirt on with their school logo or something like that.
Right.
So I'm looking for those items, and then other distinguishing. In terms of the virtual world, you're looking for anything on the avatar. One of the things that's interesting is when you can, if you maybe you're in a room full of 5 people or on a virtual call with 5 people, and there's one person that you know fairly well, you can organically and authentically connect with that person that you do know.
Okay.
Now, I'm not talking about no inside jokes, nothing
Right.
that's like
Right.
some unique thing that the two of you did this weekend. That's exclusive.
Right.
That excludes people, right? But talk about things that you both have in common that other people can jump in on.
Okay.
Like pets are great, anything like that, fishing, whatever your hobbies are that you two have in common. More than likely, there could be somebody else in there that might jump in. They're off mute now. They're like,
Yeah.
because that's something they also like, right?
Yeah.
People like to talk about themselves. So now you've given them common ground, safe space to come talk about their passion that's associated with the same thing, and then change it up. Hit different things. Don't always talk to the same person about fishing. Don't always talk to the same person about dogs.
Right.
Mix it up, and you can use that as kind of a jump starting point for other people to pile in on. And you talk about getting people off of mute. You can even go so far, and I have done this. I wouldn't do it the first time I had a meeting with the person, but if there's a person I'm having recurring meetings with, and they're typically muted and they're not talking, I don't have a problem calling them out and saying, "Hey, Tom, how about you guys? You have pets?" And then let's just see what they say. They're going to come off mute. They're going to tell you something. Now, sometimes they may say, "I don't have pets, but I do have this," or "I have some." Now you got something. I got a thread I can pull. Now we can go work that direction.
Okay, now one of the things I learned in journalism is that you never ask a question that you don't have some idea of what the answer is. So we're gonna dive into this, and we're gonna see where this goes.
I'm scared.
What's your avatar?
I actually have the photo from our website for the podcast. So my photo. So it's
Okay.
actually my picture because it's a very professionally done photo. It's probably the most professionally done photo I have because my daughter took it.
Right.
She's actually quite talented photographer. But prior to that, I had a photo of Ron Swanson,
Okay.
right, who is one of my heroes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think some people were like, thought that was really me, and then some people didn't like Ron Swanson, so I was
Right.
like, all right, fine, I'll take it down. And I think
He's a
of it was,
polarizing character.
oh, I don't think he is. I think the problem is, how can you not like Ron Swanson? Come on, go watch Parks and Rec. It's a great show. He's fantastic. Some of the all-time best quotes was somebody having a small dog, and he's like, that's any dog less than 5 pounds is a cat. It's not a dog, so that might be a little polarizing.
Yeah, might be. Yeah.
So I had to change it too because I changed roles during the pandemic.
Right.
And a lot of people didn't know me. They knew of me, but they didn't have a photo. And then they think, hey, I've seen that guy. And then they watch Parks and Rec and they go, that's not that guy at all.
You look a whole lot like.
So I changed it to an official photo. Yeah.
And I know that you have told me many stories about hijacking other people's meetings.
I love hijacking meetings. It's one of my favorite pranks. We did a whole prank episode. This is a small prank, but I do love to do this. I'd say, yeah, okay, I'm derailing your question. Hold
Yes,
on.
you are.
I'm going to hijack your question.
But in the process when we're trying to connect with people, what does connecting with people and hijacking a meeting have to do with each other?
Well, I'm hijacking your meeting and I'm taking advantage of it to connect with people in some cases.
Okay.
Right. So if I'm having a good time connecting with people and I don't care about your agenda, I'm not motivated to get back on your agenda.
Okay. So that's both a pro and a con.
I did this in college too. I would derail professors' courses. If I found
Speaking of derailing.
If I found the professor that, let him go. He's on a roll. If I found the professor that was easy to derail and then I wouldn't be scored that like the exam would cover what they covered in the class.
Right.
And like I had some professors that would say, well, we got through chapter 8 and the test will be over everything up to chapter 10. And anything that wasn't covered in class will be thoroughly covered on the exam. And I think, what? That's crazy. That class, you don't want to derail anything. You want to go as fast as you can to make sure you cover as much information as possible. It's also unfair. If I found it was going to be tested over just what we covered, oh yeah. I'll figure out what it is about that instructor that sets them off, and I'll get them to rant for 15 minutes. And no, I've just cut into the complex. None of that will be tested.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen at all. So, and I will derail. I used to derail my boss's staff meetings. This is like 15 years ago, but I remember one time derailing an entire staff meeting for maybe 30 minutes of an hour meeting by proposing some of the fundamental flaws associated with the idea of someone being able to stop and fast forward time.
What does that have to do with anything?
Nothing at all. It's just fantastic to talk about because you like the idea of being able to pause time, right? That would be fantastic. I would pause time and then I would go fill somebody's pants with chili and then I would come back and sit down and watch them just process and figure out what the heck's going on.
What blows me away is you are actually paid.
Yeah.
You were actually paid.
In that meeting, I was paid for that half hour. Yeah. And what's interesting, of course, it's with engineers. And so they immediately get lost in the weeds of the possible scenarios and the things. And we went on for half an hour, including the boss. And eventually the boss was like, Brent, stop hijacking the meetings.
I mean, everybody needs breaks. But
Hey,
come on
I'm
now.
good for team morale, if nothing else, right? So we had a good time. We joke about it. I would do that all the time if I could. But when you do it too many times, eventually, the boss is like, no, you be quiet.
Okay, so if it is your meeting, how do you segue from all of this back into the actual agenda?
And I sometimes it can be authentic. If you can make it a nice segue, it's great, but it doesn't have to be. I think you could be like, all right, well, that's enough talk about pets. Let me talk about what we're here for. And then you can just transition to whatever you're trying to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't think that has to be super fancy. Like, I really value watching comedians that can segue jokes. I don't think you need to do that in terms of a meeting, right?
Right.
Now, if you're presenting, that's different. When you're doing a presentation, you need to have solid segues between your slides and what you're doing. Maybe we need to do that as our presentation 201, but and get into some of that content. But for the purpose of meetings, I think you can just transition.
Well, and I know that a lot of your listeners probably are unaware that if you could do anything, you would really love to be a stand-up comic.
Man, it's terrifying. The idea of it is terrifying, but that would be, that would be awesome. That'd be
So
fun.
you do use humor a lot in trying to connect with people, right?
Humorous stories and things like that.
Right, but you also have to be very, very, very careful with humor.
Yeah, you're right. And I've burned myself with this.
Yeah,
You tell me a joke that doesn't offend someone.
right.
There's not any that don't offend someone,
Right.
right? So, well, what kind of humor is safe then? Well, one things I've learned is that every company has certain bureaucracy that you can all mutually rally behind in hatred. I think I've joked on the podcast before. I think sometimes they will introduce new software packages to a company just for team morale, because they'll shove it down everybody's throat. Here, you're using this new software, and we all hate it, right? We all hate it, but we rallied together in mutual hatred of something.
Right. And I see that we do that sometimes with parenting, right?
We definitely do. We definitely do.
If we make a new rule and everyone hates it, you guys unite together to hate us.
Yeah,
And you guys
that's
are
right.
united.
So those are usually safe, humorous things
Right.
to joke about is the common things that we mutually disdain. Now, there's unsafe stuff. You need to certainly be careful about what kind of, again, jokes can be very offensive. You have to be careful with those.
Right.
So you want to focus on those things that you're pretty sure everybody's going to. I've made the mistake of thinking that was true and making it. I think I talked about this on the podcast one time about joking about something only to find one person in the room being like, well, I know you don't like that, but if we didn't have it, then blah, 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 blah. And I realized,
Right.
I just stuck my foot in my mouth. Yeah.
So how do you keep your stuff fresh? How do you keep your transitions fresh, your questions fresh? Because anybody who's been around you is used to the same desert island questions.
Yeah, I think you keep communicating with people. right? I think you can tell people when your stuff is stale and people get tired of it. And so just practice makes perfect. It's just a lot of communication, right? So let's talk, you mentioned the deserted island game here, and we've talked about it in the past, but not in this recording. And you get people that listen to all kinds of episodes and maybe not all of them. So maybe we share a little bit about that. That's a trick that I've used as, we're talking about me connecting with a person or one-on-one you connecting with a person. There's another level to this when you're trying to connect people together.
Right.
Which is that's part of the job as a leader, is not for just you to connect with somebody, but now it's my job to connect two other people together. So one of the ways when I'm trying to connect other people together is I can leverage this deserted island game. And what it is, it's very simple, and people who know me will roll their eyes when they hear it. But if you don't know me, you don't think about, or maybe you just don't know me well enough and you're scared of rolling your eyes at me. Either way, it still works. And the idea is you're on a deserted island and you get to bring 3 blank, whatever that is. You can change what blank is to whatever you want. And so I volunteer and lead trips in the summer with youth groups. I will take groups of teenagers. So I've got one coming up where I'm going to be traveling to Montana, and maybe they'll listen to it and they'll be, I know your tricks, and they're not going to listen to me. That's okay. I've got other tricks. I'll play other cards instead. But I'll on the ground, you're dealing with people you never met, and I'm going to spend a week with, helping facilitate this trip and guide them through all the things that we're going to do. And so one of the things I like to do right off the bat is I'm really focused on the leaders. The leaders that are in charge of the students, those are really my focus areas, right? And if I serve them well, then things are going to go well, right? And so one of the things I'll do right off the bat is I'll play the deserted island game, and I'll ask questions like, you're on a deserted island, and what are your 3 drinks you're going to bring? And I'll eliminate the boring ones, like water, milk, and orange juice, and are free. And they're going to go with coffee. And I'm going to tell, what kind of coffee? Be more detailed. Tell me about that.
Right.
And I'm going to now learn what their favorite coffee is. I'm going to learn what their favorite, whatever it is. They'll usually go alcohol or non-alcoholic. I'll go, let's do 3 of both. Okay.
Right.
Because I might not be able to do anything about the other one. But for the non-alcoholic, by day 2 or 3, and we're worn out dealing with teenagers, and you're tired, and you're just had it, like, there's only so comfortable I can make you, and you're still tired because teenagers got lots of energy.
Oh yeah,
lots more than us 40-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
And so if I know Dr. Pepper and Snickers is your go-to, just like you with the mail lady, I'm coming up and I'm going to hit you with that, and that's going to be a really nice surprise for you. You're going to immediately be like, this person's listening to me and they care about me. Right. It's just a great thing to do. It's a good people thing to do, right? Great way to connect with people, right? And I'll do the same, but at the same time, I'm doing that with the whole group so they connect with each other. How many times I've seen them connecting with each other in ways that they had no idea.
Right.
They thought they knew each other. This is groups of people that have been working with each other, or hanging out, and they're doing church or whatever they're doing together. This is a community that already exists.
Right.
But they didn't know all these things about each other until I've provoked with these kinds of questions.
Right. And I've heard you ask favorite songs. I've heard you ask favorite albums.
Right.
Not mixtapes.
No mixtapes.
Actual albums.
No mixtapes.
And
cheating.
then movies, books. There are all sorts of things you could ask.
That's right.
This line.
That's right. Absolutely. Nice trick. And ultimately, the name of the game is to try to get people to open up and to connect with people.
Right.
Now, the more authentic your connections,
right,
the more your network expands.
Yeah.
In a natural way, right? Now, it doesn't, just because you know that person has a dog or they like Pink Floyd, does not mean immediately this person's going to help support you on a project.
Correct.
Or something that you need.
Correct.
It's the first thread.
Yep.
It gives you an opportunity to go tell me more. Now you have more things that now you have common ground.
Right.
So you can, and you slowly, that's how you develop a relationship. Over time, you're now developing a relationship.
Right.
Right. And the people who don't do this, the people who just come straight in with, straight to work and there's no connection there, I might support you, but I might you may not be first on my list.
Right.
Right. And having some network connection becomes very valuable. You never know what kind of doors open up. Right.
Yeah.
So I got to tell this story, even though you wouldn't let me open with it. I'm going to add it in here anyway. I had a coworker, just this week send me a picture where they had lightning strike a tree in their front yard. This is craziness. Lightning struck the tree in the front yard, blew the bark off the tree, and shat through their front window.
That's just crazy.
Just insanity,
just the
right?
idea of it.
And he was like, well, they think the tree is going to die. And I was like, well, don't scrap it. Well, what are you talking about? Well, don't scrap it. I got a guy. We'll make it into a table. I do a little bit of woodworking. I just need somebody to cut it into slabs.
Right.
Well, I got a connection.
Right.
I got a guy because I'm busy making connections all the time, and over time, you get a person, a contact for all kinds of different things, and the doors start to open up. Projects that weren't possible before now become possible. Things that seemed you can't get that done. All of a sudden, well, yeah, you can if you just have the right connection.
Right. And I think that one thing that I failed to see early in life, and I understand more the older I get, is it's not just about having diversity amongst your friends or amongst your network.
Yeah.
The idea of diversity is that each of those people in your life have a unique voice and a unique perspective.
Sure.
So I like that the more diversified your network is, then the more you can fill in the blanks when there is a need.
Yeah.
And when you have someone in your life that is going through a divorce, or you have someone in your life that has just lost a job, then the connections that you've built within your network, both inside your company and outside your company, you get to connect the people with the person that they need.
That's right. And the piece on diversity is outrageously valuable, and I'm glad you bring it up. Is try to connect with people that aren't like you.
Yeah.
You need to stretch yourself and learn how to connect with people who aren't like you. For that reason, you need a diverse network.
Yeah.
You need different perspectives to solve problems, right?
And I find that if you have people, I mean, for me, it's like campfire, right? If you have people and you share a campfire with them, and then you're going to connect with people on a level to where you can't hate the person for the areas in which they're different because you like them too much in the areas that you're similar.
If people share a campfire with Jamie, you're on a different list.
Yeah.
If you've never shared a campfire with her, you're not on that list. You're on the outside. Here's the circle, and here's you.
Yep.
All right. The keys key sharings on how to connect with folks in under 5 minutes. I'd say probably 2 minutes. Sometimes you only get 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. And the faster, the better. Right.
Yeah.
Have a good week, folks.